North Dakota has been viewed as a frontier of opportunity. Throughout history, the state has profited from its natural resources. New York Times writer Chip Brown embarked into the North Dakota oil basin to account life inside the boom. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today from Manhattan.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Okay, well, to start it off, of all the possible story angles, why did the Times assign you the North Dakota oil boom?
They wanted to write about the oil boom, and they wanted somebody to write about it. And they asked me why. They asked me. I don't really know. I think it's something I could do because I've written about landscapes before and energy before. So, and also I'm interested in North Dakota, and I don't think many of their writers are. So. Maybe, I don't know. I have no idea really why. They just said, do you want to write about it? They asked me in November, and I said, you don't really want to write about this in November? I said, no, I would kind of like to wait till the spring.
Okay, so when did you actually come out and travel?
I first came in April last year, and then I came again in May. I would have come a third time, but they ran out of money, so it's not cheap traveling in western North Dakota.
Was there any preconceived ideas of what life out here in North Dakota would be like?
No, I had no idea really, and so I was open to whatever it was. Excuse me. I was waiting to see what it was, so that's why I was kind of interested.
How about life inside the oil basin?
It's definitely different. I think they say there's two states. There's the eastern part of the state and the western part of the state, and life in the oil basin is in flux. So it's really. It changes week to week. I mean, people don't know their neighbors. They barely recognize the road sometimes. You can't do what you used to do. My favorite story was they're trying to keep the dust down in I think it's Williams County or McKenzie County, and they're trying all these compounds to keep the dust down. And they tried a soybean-based oil, but it made the roads taste so good that the cows would come down and started to eat the roads. So that wasn't going to work. But that's the sort of little details that I was looking for, was things that suggest how a boom affects a culture.
So in your article, you describe North Dakota as a frontier. Like, in what way?
Well, it's not the most original description. It's the kind of frontier it's a secondary frontier. It's the main wave of settlement passed over here 100 years ago, and this is the resettlement or the refrontiering of the place of the land. It's the frontier. There's also frontiers where places have been neglected or overlooked, or they fall into economic disuse. So it was really more. This is a frontier of rediscovery rather than the initial discovery. So,
what was it like seeing firsthand the effects of this boom?
Well, I mean, there's the obvious effects of you're going to get crushed between two large, 15-ton trucks, and you can't find a place to stay, and there's mud everywhere, and there's just the tactics of getting around are difficult, and also I happened to come during one of the biggest rainstorms they've had in a long time. So I originally wanted to drive down US 85 and sort of use the road as my main line through the oil fields, but it was raining so hard, if I got out of the car I was soaked within 30 seconds. So I had to abandon that as an idea for the story.
Well, one of the things I appreciate most about your article is how you really incorporate the state's past. How important do you feel the state's history reflects this current economic boom?
Well, the history shapes all of people's reactions to the boom. I mean, North Dakota, they wouldn't embrace the oil boom so unequivocally, and if they hadn't had so many failures of booms in the past. It's the dust of the 30s is still blowing around in people's memories. So they look at any kind of economic influx as a blessing, and they tend to mitigate or minimize the disadvantages.
So what was your favorite part of being in the prairie of North Dakota?
Actually it was getting out of the car and staring out into 100 miles of empty land. I mean, I live in a city where you can't walk 5 feet without having to veer away from somebody. And here you could stand for hours, and at least not in downtown Williston, but if outside of the city in small towns like Tioga and Crosby, and seeing those small towns and seeing the boarded up buildings, and then the new life that was there also was. It's strangely peaceful and kind of inspiring, and you can hear you can hear nature again. You kind of almost hear the grass growing, and birds, and the kind of the stars creaking
I know,
overhead.
it really is beautiful.
It is really surprisingly beautiful, and people think of it as this sort of nowhere in middle, no account flyover land, but actually it's extraordinarily beautiful. And you can hear that, you can see that in Willa Cather's writing. You know, if you read her descriptions of Nebraska, it's incredibly beautiful, and she evokes that immensity and that silence.
Well, thank you, and again
you for
on the
having me.
success of your article and for appearing on the show today.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me.